Okay, so good evening. Yeah, it's been a very long day. I started off today in, I don't know what it's called, Penn State University Park, Penn State. It's about a 5-hour drive, and Rabbi Wallerstein's supposed to be here, so I'm a very poor substitute, but I'm all you got, so welcome. They asked for a title for today, and I chose The Grinch Who Stole Purim, sort of reluctantly, because usually when we think of Grinches and stealing, a different chaga comes to mind. And I don't want you to be thinking of that, but I figured that Theodore Geisel was not Christian. You all know what Theodore was? It was Dr. Seuss. There we go. His real name. Yeah, Theodore Geisel. Theodore Geisel was not passionate. He was just making children's books, and so he chose the Grinch, so that the Grinch could steal anything. So the Grinch stole Purim. And the truth of the matter is that I have not given this shir before, but if it comes out the way it is in my mind, it could be very valuable. So before we begin with this, I want to say something. If you've been following the news this Friday, something pretty remarkable happened. We know that there was an asteroid that was supposed to come right near to Earth. As a matter of fact, the closest one in history. You aware of that? It was quite close. It was 50 yards across, and if it had, for example, fallen on New York, there would be no New York. It would have fallen with the force of 100,000 atomic bombs. And it came very close. As a matter of fact, when I say the number, it's not going to sound so close. It actually came 17,000 miles from Earth. That is ridiculously close for a asteroid that's flying at 8 miles per second. 17,000 miles can very easily reach the Earth in a matter of hours, and we track, not we, but the United States government tracks these asteroids, and they've made movies about it, what happens the day that it crashes into Earth. An asteroid similar to the size fell in the 1918, 1915 in Siberia and cleared 1,000 miles of forest. Just wiped out all the trees. It's a very scary thing when an asteroid falls. And so, whenever an asteroid comes near, the news reports are always, okay, this one's not going to hit, but what are we going to do when it does hit? What are we going to do? And when an asteroid comes near, that's when the chatter and the murmurs begin, and they're going to throw an atomic bomb at it. That's not going to do anything. It'll just break it in half. Both halves are going to fall on Earth. It won't be great. They'll build a rocket, and the rocket will nudge over the asteroid and move it out of its orbit. One thing after the next, but right now we don't have a way of stopping an asteroid. As a matter of fact, there is a much larger asteroid that is supposed to come much closer to Earth in 2029, and on its second rotation around, which will be 2036, there is a chance that it will hit Earth. That's the first one in history that actually there's a proper chance for it to hit, and it is much bigger than the one that came near. It is as large as a football field, and if it smacks into the United States, it will wipe out half the United States. So, daven to Hashem, if you're around in 2036, Bez Hashem you will, that it doesn't come near. So here we are, we're all watching, very interesting, and at 2:30 on Friday, it's supposed to come the closest to Earth. Something remarkable happened just around the same time. Anyone know what? Another asteroid that they didn't even see slammed it. No, it didn't knock it out. It would have been bizarre. But another asteroid came into the atmosphere and slammed into Earth. Now, it was much smaller. There's a machlokas how big it was, either the size of a school bus or maybe even as big as 50 feet. Whatever it is, the force was way more than an atomic bomb, except that the atmosphere burned it up. Even so, the shock waves of it entering injured 1,200 people in Russia. And it wiped out a million windows. A million windows were destroyed because a million square feet of windows were destroyed from this. So just picture this. And by the way, the chance of the two happening on the same day, the mathematicians calculated it. The chance of both of them happening on the same day is 1 in 100 million. So we sort of won the lottery in a bizarre way, right? So Friday night, so I have a little shul in my house, a Kalbach Minyan. So I usually speak about something that has to do with the week and tied into Shabbos, or tied into the Parsha, and I call it my 122nd thought of the week. Usually it lasts about double that, so it's about 4 minutes. And sometimes it deals with politics. But this time, I was dealing with this idea of these two things coming, one hitting the earth, one coming near to the earth. So, what's the lesson here? And I was thinking the lesson is that we have a choice in life. Either to be Yarei Shamayim, either to fear Hashem, or to fear everything else. When we have emunah in Hashem, that Hashem will take care, not that we don't have to do our ishtadlus, because we do, but when we have emunah in Hashem, so then ultimately we are able to live our lives without sittering. But for those who don't believe in Hashem, they're staring, what's the next calamity we have to avoid? What's the next thing? And while you're looking over here, all the way from over there, you weren't even paying attention, you didn't look, and it slams into earth. And your eyes can't be everywhere. Only Hashem's eyes are everywhere, because Hashem is everywhere. And therefore, what an amazing idea. The idea that, you know, there's a book of sayings, there's a very famous saying, I'm sure you must have heard of it. I think they use it in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. But it's a great saying nonetheless. And the saying goes, let go, let God. I like it. Let go and let God. Okay? You can either let go and let Hashem. Let Hashem do what Hashem's going to do. And I was thinking that's totally the message. Because the moment we think, how are we going to control this asteroid, another asteroid out of the blue, and how do we miss it? And everyone's looking over here. And that's not the first time that's happened. When we fixate on one calamity, and from out of the blue, another calamity comes, and we weren't even paying attention. We can either be afraid and walk around in mortal fear. I get it all the time. I try to get students to Israel. And the mother doesn't let them, the grandmother, they saw on the news, and the bomb. I said, you kidding? There hasn't been a bomb in years in Eretz Israel. Baruch Hashem. And with a little thing, you know, Eretz Israel is probably the safest country in the world. Would you agree with me? You can walk out at night, murder, Jew-on-Jew murder is very rare. Kidnapping is unheard of. The first kidnapping in Israel took place 25 years after Israel was made into a state. It took 25 years for the first known kidnapping. That was the famous Yasala kidnapping, right? Kidnapping, murder. Baruch Hashem, the Eretz Israel didn't listen to the world and build these huge walls. Eretz Israel is literally, the kids go out at night. You've been there, Eretz Israel. The kids just go, parents don't know. You know, kids, they build fires, they jump over fire. At Eretz Israel, it's a balagan. But it's safe. It's like, but the parents, they see on the news, and they fixate, and they sit there. Anyways, I think I wanted to point that out because we are living right after these two asteroids came near, and I thought it was something interesting to talk about. So Purim is on its way.
Excuse me, can you expand on the idea of let go and let God, please?
Yeah, I don't want to expand on it too much because I have a lot to say, but no problem. I'll give you one line that that we just have to remember, okay? Tzaddik be'emunaso yichya. A righteous person will live through emunah. Right? A righteous person, a person who's righteous, says, you know what? Whatever Hashem wants to happen. And that includes death. It includes death. When my brother was nifter, And my father had to get up and deliver his hesped. He was different in his sleep. He wasn't sick at all. He just went to sleep and never woke up. 4 children. You go on Torah anytime. You'll hear the story. It'll shake you up. And I dare anyone who wants to listen to that Levaya. It's recorded. My kids can't do 5 minutes without breaking down. My father gets up, and what does the father say at his son's Levaya? And the first words he said were, Hashem nosan v'Hashem lokach Yishem Hashem avarach. And then he cried. And then he lost it. But he didn't lose it until he stayed in his position. My position is Hashem nosan v'Hashem lokach. Life is a matnas chinam. I didn't do anything to deserve it. I didn't sign any agreement. Right? No one made any deals with me. Hashem nosan, Hashem lokach. Right? We have a munah that Hashem loves us more than we love ourselves. That's amazing. Because we love ourselves a lot. But He loves us more than that. And when things happen, tzaddik ben munasa yichya. And we go around, not delusional, and not naively, and not la-di-da. Hurricane Sandy happened. People were out of houses. Disasters happen. I just passed, when I was driving back from Pennsylvania, so I went through Manhattan, and I passed where the Twin Towers were. Who can drive by and not think that on this spot, thousands of people died. On this spot, great rishus occurred right here. Instead, there's going to be a shiny new building. Okay. It actually ties into Purim as well, though not actually my point.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So when I say the Grinch has stole Purim, I'm going to say something that is controversial. I'll start with controversy, and then we'll smooth it over, okay? On Purim, there is a minhag to drink. It's called the minhag of Adelo Yada. Drink until you don't know the difference between Arur Haman and Baruch Mordechai. Drink. Right? Ketoiv lev hamelech bayayin. The mnays happened when the heart of the king was full of wine. And you read about and you hear about, and if you've been to shmuzim, especially if you're a guy, which you're not, but if you're a guy, you'll hear your mashgichim get up and say, don't drink. Go to sleep instead. Drink a little. It didn't mean this. It didn't mean that. Right? You go into shul. Not all shuls, but many shuls. And there are kids and they're dressed up as Queen Esther, King Achashverosh, a little prince, Spider-Man, the villain, who knows, whatever they're dressed up as. And they've got their groggers. And the Balkare, he's reading the Megillah, right? And it says, Vayar Haman. And the kids are banging, and after like 3 seconds, Shah, Shah, Shah. Why Shah? I thought you were supposed to bang by Haman. Shah, you got to go on. Like where are you running to? Are you worried about finishing the Megillah 5 minutes later, or perhaps 10 minutes later? The kids came to make noise, right? They want to make noise. Kids want to make noise legitimately. Why are you stopping them? An adult or a quasi-adult gets dressed up. You're not a kid. Don't get dressed up. You're not a kid. Even though Shulchan Aruch speaks about getting dressed up. The last siman. And one minhag after the next that we hear about when we're young gets stolen from us. Gets squashed. Don't make noise. Don't go overboard. And don't drink. Just go to sleep. Be tame. Be calm. Don't get dressed. It's Yom Kippur, so concentrate on the Yom Kippur aspect. And my daughter came to me last week and she said, you know what, I feel tricked. Like when we're young, they're telling me, it's so much fun, and there's, shalach manas. Right? You can't, your friends, you don't have to give to all your friends. Don't go overboard. Don't go, give to 2 friends, that's the mitzvah. I'm sorry. Thank you. Give to 1 friend, 2 minimum, you've done your mitzvah. That's it. You don't have to go and if you're 100 people buy these extravagant shalach manas, and that's not the mitzvah. Says who? Everything. It's like the Grinch who stole Purim. Is anyone feeling what I'm feeling? Right? You all are, you see? I'll tell you anytime, they won't see you nodding, but I testify you're nodding. It's like, what's going on? And I think we have to reclaim Purim. Now, each of these Yekisha points, I grew up in a Yekisha shul, and very fine shul, but Yekish, a lot of Yekis. The Rav was a Yeki, the Gabbai was a Yeki, the president was a Yeki, everyone was a Yeki, and Yeki, German, Yeki German, like from Frankfurt, Pinklach. I remember by Hakafas, every Hakafa will be 10 minutes. Yavop, 10 minutes, no more. Right? And of course it's Bachram. Bachram want to dance, they want to go crazy. 9 minutes, 55 seconds, here comes, this is broken. 9 minutes and 55 seconds. It's okay. The Gabbai comes in, stop, it's 10 minutes. But everyone's dancing. They're having a great time. But the watch is like, but the dancing, Simchas Torah, but the watch. There's a lot of that going on. Do you notice that? A lot of the outer trappings that were supposed to be the flavor and the spice of Yiddishkeit. It was supposed to be geschmack. And somebody somewhere in some office is so nervous that we're going to forget the main idea that one thing after the next sort of gets pulled away. Now, there's no question that things can be overdone. And I'll give you the examples. A guy can get totally smashed, get into a car, chas v'shalom, or pass out, hit his head on the toilet seat, end up in accelerate. Bad things can happen. You can make too much noise by Haman. The Balkore didn't know that you're going to continue making noise. He continued reading and he missed a few words. Right? But that's the reasoning. There's a reason behind it. They're not just like the Grinch who stole it for no reason. There's a reason. But we're forgetting, with all the reasons, the Inyan itself was a big Inyan. We have to know that when Klal Yisrael has a minhag, there's very special reasons why we have it. And it's to teach us very profound lessons. And when we take away that geschmackkeit and that spice, we're not only taking away some of the zest and the reason that we looked up and we looked forward to it, but the essence, the Inyan, is also being taken away from us. So I want to speak about the Inyan of Purim. One of the really key Inyanim, one of the key ideas. It's a wonderful idea. And we'll show how the Minhagim cater to that idea. And then we're going to speak about how to learn to incorporate that idea.
Amen.
Person comes over to Shammai and says to Shammai, teach me the entire Torah on 1 foot. And Shammai sends him away. You're a letz, you're arrogant, out of here. Hillel comes to Hillel, teach me Torah on 1 foot. What does Hillel say? Madasani alecha lechavrecha lo savid. What you don't want, right? Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Love your friend like you love yourself. Right? The rest is Pirush, Zil Gris. The rest is explanation. Go and you'll learn it. What was the Shakla V'Tarya? What was the question? What was the answer? Why was he coming and saying, teach me the Torah on 1 foot? Anyone know? He was actually saying something about the Jewish people that was a criticism. And what he was saying was that Jews are very much in things for themselves. We're very introverted in terms of how we act. It's all about me. It's all about me. I have to eat the shear at the right time. I have to eat a big enough shear. I have to daven Kriya Shema b'zmana. I have to make sure I put on my tefillin. I have to light the candles. It's me. Teach me how the Torah functions if it's all about 1 foot. Right? You can't have a person existing too long if it's just 1 foot. So what does Hillel answer? Hillel says, no. You only think it's 1 foot. The truth is, it's much more than 1 foot, except that we incorporate the next person's pain so much into ours. The next person's concern becomes so much part of our concern that it seems to you like we're in it for ourselves. But really, your pain is my pain. Your concern is my concern. You're having a tough time with Parnasa, then I'm having a tough time. You're having a tough time with Shidduchim, then it's my tough time. You're cold, I'm cold. You're hungry, I'm hungry. And he said, wow. So it's the opposite of what I thought. I thought you're all in it for yourselves. But really, the Torah is saying, make everyone else yourself. Everyone is you. We call that empathy. And that's going to be the subject of this evening. Empathy is the great catalyst to becoming great in Judaism and becoming a great person. I'm going to show you how to acquire it. What is empathy? What's sympathy? What's empathy? So, sympathy means I understand that you're in pain. I commiserate with you. Wow, Nebuch, right? I feel bad. I'm sympathetic to your cause. Empathy is something different. Empathy is, your pain is my pain. Whatever you feel, I feel. Let's look at how the Torah functions like this. The Torah says, Ve'ohavta l'reacha kamoicha. The love for you is like the love for me. That's empathy. What you hate, what you don't like, don't do to your friend. That's empathy again. Do you hear that? If you do it to your friend, but you wouldn't like it, then your friend's going to feel pain. And you wouldn't want to feel that pain, so you got to learn empathy. Love a stranger, empathy. Because you were strangers. The very first mitzvah in Parshas Mishpatim, how to take care of an Eved? Because you were Avadim. It's the great energy behind Judaism is empathy. Judaism is all about empathy. It's about being able to feel the next person's pain. And when we forget that one simple truth, we can be sympathetic, we can be Baalei Chesed, but we will never become like Hashem, which is the mitzvah. We'll never become like Hashem because we don't really feel the next person's pain. Now, it's hard to feel the next person's pain, and we're going to speak about how to do that. But let me show you where that fits into the Megillah. Something that people don't think of a lot. When Achashverosh made his Seudah on Purim, what vessels did he use? What kelim did he use? Kelim for the Beis HaMikdash. When the Jewish people used those kelim, they drank from those kelim. When they attended the Mishnah that had those kelim, they were chayiv klaya. They were chayiv destruction. Why? Who can figure out why?
Because they were celebrating the fact that this never, well, not church, but was never built.
So you're saying there's a symbolism there. The symbolism.
Well, it's more than its symbolism.
Right, there is more.
I mean, it's just also told this.
Ooh. I have to cut you out because she just, in one line, she just gave it to me. Excellent. What did you say? They weren't feeling Hashem's pain. Hashem is in pain. The Gemara in Bracha speaks about it, other Gemaras as well. Yisha Kahari. Hashem screams like a lion. Woe to the children that have to be sent away from the table of their father. That have to send his children away. Hashem is in pain. Hashem is in galus. The Shekhinah went to galus with us. So you're going to use these kelim and you're going to enjoy food, kosher or not. Where's your sensitivity? Do you understand? Hashem was in pain and you joyously eat? I don't get it. You hear the issue? And therefore, the Jewish people were chayiv kloya, because that great catalyst, the feeling the pain, you can't feel Hashem's pain. So what happens? Destruction is decreed on them. So Esther goes and she has to visit Achashverosh and plead. So what does she do? She fasts. So what did she tell Mordechai to tell the rest of Klal Yisrael to do? Fast together with her. Why did they fast together with her? So they should feel her pain. They should feel what the tzara is going to be about. They should feel if she's in pain and her life is in danger, then they will learn what it means to feel, to know that your life is in danger. We have to feel empathy. That's why the mitzvahs that are on Purim are empathetic mitzvahs. For example, not only do we give matanos le'avyonim, matanos le'avyonim doesn't sound like such a, we give ma'os chitim before Pesach, so we give matanos le'avyonim. But what do we also do? We give shalach manos, mishlach manos. Why? She doesn't need food. She's got food. She's not an ani. The answer is, if Purim is about feeling the next person's pain, then the way to connect with the next person is to give them something. When you give them something, you give them something of yours. You invested in them, and they become part of you. And that's why it's no big deal. You want to give 100? Give 100. You're just becoming more empathetic. You're learning to see the other person's joy just a little bit more. And if somebody needs a big fat shalach manos and you got to spend $75, so spend $75. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, if you're going to give it to an ani, enachinami. But there is an Indian to feel the next person, not just a poor person. There's a danger in only feeling a poor person. You know what the danger is? You'll become a Baal Chesed. Why is that dangerous? Because it's not just about being a Baal Chesed. A Baal Chesed is sympathy. They get my sympathy. Never. The guy is sitting there outside. It's 20 degrees outside. He doesn't write sympathy. But you don't know what it's like to feel 20 degrees outside. But he does. Empathy means I'm going to feel you. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be present. Right? One of the reasons, one of the inyanim of drinking, and anyone who's done this right, and I'm not telling you to get drunk, so that's not the thing. There is an inyan to get drunk. Those who know, understand that nichnas yayin yatsa sod. When wine comes in, when schnapps comes in, it has the same alcohol. Yatsa sod. Our foundation, our secrets come out. And you know what our secrets are? Sometimes our secrets are that I'm sorry I hurt you. And I haven't had the guts to say it. But I'm a little bit looser now. Maybe the secret is that I appreciate you in my life, but I'm too strong to let you know that. This is more of a man thing, by the way. But it's true nonetheless. And one of the reasons that Bachram look forward to drinking is not so that they could act crazy, but it's so that they can say things that need to be said in the most beautiful way, and they're a little bit looser, they're not so uptight. My Rebbe, one of my Rebbe was Reb Chaim Mintz. And Reb Chaim Mintz does a Purim Suda, the second night of Purim, that lasts until the morning. Now today it's in Lakewood, but it used to be in Flatbush. And I used to go. I went to his yeshiva, my kids go to his yeshiva. And one day, it was right before Purim, they had hired a Spanish maid. And they told the Spanish maid that tomorrow there's going to be a holiday called Purim where a bunch of teenagers come and get drunk. So the Spanish maid actually used to work in a bar. And she knew what it's like when teenagers get drunk. Vomit everywhere, broken windows, broken mirrors, broken chairs, bloodied people pummeled. So she's like, oh no, what a great time to start being a cleaning lady right before the holiday of drunkards. So she comes the next day, It comes in the evening. There's plates around, they have to be cleaned up from the Suda. And she looks around, and there are Bachrim, many, many Bachrim. And they're sitting around at a table. And Chaim Mintz is in the front. And the lights are dimmed. And they're swaying back and forth. And their eyes are shut. And they're singing, Lulei Soiroscho Shah Shuvo. She says, okay, now we're the drunkards. She says, oh, that's them. She said, I don't understand. But they're all drunk. So this Spanish maid turns to Rebbe Simmons and says, these aren't drunkards, these are angels. These are angels sitting there. The beautiful music in the candlelight. Because when you've got good inside of you and you drink, good comes out of you. So just to whitewash the whole thing, there's an empathy that's one of the beautiful things. I look forward to Purim because I get to tell people what I really feel about them. Since I love everyone, pretty much, I'm able to tell them, and and it makes them feel good, and it's true, right? There is a mitzvah of empathy, and on Purim, when we really work at it, and we feel the next person's pain, right? Why is it, for example, that we clap by Haman? Why do we clap by Haman? Well, Haman's Amalek, Amalek, right? There's a very famous medrash that says that Eov was one of the three people who sat by Parai when Parai was trying to figure out what to do with the Jewish people. And there was Yisrael, and there was Bilam, and there was Eov. And Yisrael said, let him be. Bilam said, kill him. And Eov said nothing. So each one got what was coming to them. Yisrael got a son-in-law, Moshe Rabbeinu, who's our Rebbe forever. Bilam was killed by the sword through Moshe Rabbeinu. And what about Eov? Eov got Yisurim. He got chastisements. He suffered sufferings that today has become synonymous with suffering. When you say, wow, he suffered like Eov, because he lost everything. He lost his field, he lost his cattle, he lost his wife, he lost his kids, and even on his own body he had boils. So the Baalei Musar say, why did Eov deserve all that? He didn't say anything. He didn't say to kill the Yidden. And the answer that they give, and they give it in Yiddish, is Wenn es tut weh, schreit man, which means
yell.
If it hurts, you scream, you yell. If something hurts, if you could sit there and see evil, if you could see wrongdoing and not say anything, then it means you're not really feeling the pain. That's what we say in Kabbalah Shabbos. Oyahave Hashem sinu ra. Those who love Hashem, they hate evil. They can't stand it. So when we hear about Haman, when we hear what Haman stood for, when we know what Amalek stood for, if we could stomach that and not make noise and not try to wipe away evil, it means that we're not feeling pain. Haman wanted to wipe everyone out. Minar badzak and tafanash of yom echad. Everyone's going to be wiped out. So what do? We hear evil. That's also part of empathy. As a matter of fact, in psychology, that is called angry empathy. Angry empathy means to feel bad for the one who is being abused and to want justice to be given to the abuser. It's angry empathy. Angry empathy. So each thing on Purim, there's an Indian behind it, and that is empathy. So now I want to get a little bit into empathy. Now, what is empathy and what is it not? Can you give someone empathy?
No.
You can give someone sympathy, right? You can't give anyone empathy. Although, if you were making a list of the most important character traits in a man that you want to marry, what would they be? You'd have anger, right? That would be 1 to 10. Would that be a 10? That'd be a 10, right? You don't want the guy to get angry. What about honesty? Be a 10. Empathy should be an 11. Empathy is so important. If you're married to someone who doesn't know how to understand what you're going through, you will feel very alone and very lonely. So, what is empathy? So I want to define empathy in the following way. Empathy is not something you give. Empathy is being present for someone fully. I am there for you totally. I'm not thinking about what to say next. I'm not thinking of educating you. I'm not giving you advice. I am simply there for you totally and completely. And that's why much of empathy is tied into listening. You can't feel someone's pain. And they won't know that you're feeling their pain unless you know how to listen. If you're trying to give advice, if you're trying to give guidance while listening, think of it like this. If you have a tube, you want to squeeze something out of the tube, either it's coming out or it's going in. But if both are trying to happen, nothing's going anywhere. So if the person's trying to unload on you, let you know where they're coming from, why they're in pain, what their issues are, and at the same time you're trying to give them advice, you're trying to give them guidance, then they're not going to hear the guidance, and you're not going to be there for them. So nothing's happening. People who are great in empathy understand that empathy means I am totally, totally there for you. Remember, I learned to, you could act. I don't know if any of you have ever read a book or even seen a film that was very, very sad, and you found yourself tearing up, and then you were angry at yourself for tearing up for a fictional character. Yeah? Like, why am I crying? She didn't really die. She is, as soon as they said cut, I'm going to leave this down there. There we go. Thank you for being empathetic. Yes, I'm great. I'm great, yes. You look at that person and you feel bad for them. The truth of the matter is, I'm not telling you to go run and see movies, but I grew up in a home where we don't have movies now, but I grew up when there were movies, and certain movies made me all teary up, and I'd be upset. Like, why am I getting? Nothing really happened. Yeah, but it's so realistic. I really believe it. It's not a bad thing to practice empathy, because you could practice to become a little more present. I remember this scarred me for life. I was maybe 7 years old when I saw this. It was Donald Duck. You know Donald Duck? No one even watched it, right? Donald Duck? Oh boy. That's my Donald Duck impression. Forever on tour anytime. Rabbi Klatzko, Donald Duck. So, Donald Duck, he had these three nephews, right? 3 little nephews. And Louie, Huey, and Louie, Huey, and Dewey? There we go. I got 2 or 3. 2 or 3. Louie, Huey, and Dewey. And it was their uncle. They're not his kids, they're his nephews, right? So they wanted to buy their Uncle Donald a present for his birthday. So they wanted to buy him a present. So they had heard that he liked to smoke cigars. I think this was made a long time ago, because they wouldn't do this anymore. But they heard he liked to smoke cigars. So they went out, they saved money, they earned money, and they bought him a box of cigars. And they used to have this clubhouse. So they went up to their clubhouse, and they're about to wrap it for their Uncle Donald, when Uncle Donald surprises them and comes up. And he sees them sitting around, and there's a box of cigars. And he says, I'll teach you a lesson not to smoke. And he takes the cigars, and he shoves them into all their mouths, so they each have 10 cigars sticking out, lights them all up, and they're and they're smoking, their face is turning blue because they can't handle the smoke and fumes, and they all faint in the clubhouse. And he goes, that'll show them. And then he's about to leave. He sees there's a little card on the floor. He picks up the card. It says, to our dear Uncle Donald, we love you so much with all of our heart. So we bought you this present, this cigars. And he's like, ah! And that was the end of the very damaging little cartoon that they showed to a 7-year-old. And I'm watching this, and I'm feeling so angry, but also sad for these kids, and the uncle didn't give them a chance, and yes, they're ducks, and yes, they're a cartoon, and nothing happened. Hey, someone's crying here? Okay. It's okay. It's okay. Empathy is a beautiful thing. Even at a young age. Did you ever notice, by the way, that when somebody yawns, that other people yawn? And you ever wonder, why is that? Yawns are not catchy. It's not a virus. It's the weirdest thing, isn't it? It's like, and it doesn't work if it's a fake yawn. Did you ever notice that? You try that. You can go like this, but if it's a fake yawn, no one's going to suddenly start yawning. Unless I just gave you that suggestion now. Okay, hold it back. Hold it in. Okay. That's a sneeze, right. But there's this like crazy. Do you ever wonder why is the, oh, there we go. We got a yawner here. It worked. Get it out of your system. So why is yawning catchy? There we go, second yawn.
Sorry. I'm sorry. It's not that the share is beautiful.
It's going to be fun to watch over. So why do other people yawn? Yawns aren't catchy. The answer is yawns work with empathy. Yawns work with empathy. Meaning, when you see another person tired, when you see another person sort of bored, you commiserate with them, and in order to show, well, I'm there with you, like, imi anochi b'tzara, you yawn. It's the craziest thing. Can you imagine? They've done studies that if someone yawns, but no one else sees them, the yawn's not catchy. You think you didn't see the other person yawn, but you saw them or heard them. Not only that, but people that have autism, and with autism, you lose the ability to be empathetic to a large degree. They don't have catchy yawns because the empathy is gone. And they did this amazing study where they showed different images and they gauged people's empathy to the images, and some people are more empathetic and some are less empathetic. So I feel like I created an epidemic of yawns here. It's great. I should be a hypnotist instead. So, they did this study, and they figured out who naturally is the most empathetic. Some people have very little empathy. One of the problems with narcissism, people who are very narcissistic, is that they don't have the ability, or they've erased from themselves the ability to feel empathy. But you can't feel the next person's pain. All Rahmanis, mercy and compassion, all comes from empathy. And it begins at the age of 2. That's when we first begin empathy. So, therefore, the people who were most empathetic when they looked at the pictures were also the first ones to yawn in an experiment. Crazy stuff, right? Yeah.
It could be a medical reason for that.
Yes, it could. There was a lady who yawned for like 40 years. Lady also sneezed for 40 years. Yeah. But yeah, it could be a person wants to get more oxygen. But empathy is a very big thing. They noticed that even in monkeys, this concept of empathetic yawns, which is very interesting. So let's figure out what empathy is, and then how we can become as empathetic as possible, okay? So I wrote down a few notes to remind myself. Number one, remember this. Empathy is about following. It's not about leading. It's a very critical rule to know. Empathy means I will be your follower. I will not be your leader. A leader is someone who gives advice. someone who gives guidance, someone who gives suggestions. A follower just listens. A follower says, I want to understand where you're from. I want to know. I want to be there for you. So when you decide to be empathetic, you're making up your mind to be a follower. And one of the best ways that you could demonstrate that you're a follower is by giving feedback that you're following. And therefore, you ever have somebody who says, you went through something very difficult, so you say, so the person says to you, oh, I know exactly how you feel, but, because the same thing happened to me. Oh, you got into a car crash? Yeah, I know how you feel, because I also got into a car crash. That's not empathy. That's sympathy. There are people, I notice this when I do interviewing, who everything gets turned around to be speaking about themselves. It's somewhat annoying if you've ever had a friend like that. Like, you cannot have a conversation with them and tell them an experience unless they've had a similar experience that they could share with you. And they don't mean any harm by it. But that's for sure not empathy. Empathy means, I'm not going to tell you my experience. I'm going to be there in your experience. I'm going to be there totally for you. So to say, for example, I feel your pain. You ever have someone say that to you, and you say to yourself, no, you don't really. And in your mind, you say, you don't really understand what I'm going through. You don't. You can't. Right? You can't understand another person until you've walked a mile in their shoes. So goes the saying. It's actually an Indian saying. Right? Right, moccasins, right? Originally, of course, the Torah has the equivalent, right? Until you are where they were, right? But if they just say, hey, I feel your pain, maybe they do, maybe they don't. So you know what you have to do? You have to tell them what it is that you're hearing. So for example, if someone says, I had a shidduch, and I thought this was it. Like, he gave me every suggestion that this was going to be it, and he kept saying, yeah, I'm going to meet your parents. Like he did everything but say, will you marry me? And then all of a sudden, I get a call from the shadchan. He decided that it's not a shidduch. So someone comes to you and they're broken. They're broken. It's a terrible thing. You feel gypped. You feel tricked. You feel led. So if you're the person listening to them, what do you say back? First, you say nothing. And then, in order to show that you feel where they're from, you could say, I see you're hurting. If I understand you correctly, you really thought this was it, right? Yeah, I really did. Right? And you thought that you did? Yes. Reflect. And you should know that many times when you just sit there and listen and reflect, the person's issues will be solved by that person on the spot. My husband doesn't listen to me. It's all about him. It's all about him. Wow, if I'm hearing you correctly, you don't feel listened to. Yeah, he comes home and he's busy and he's doing his work and he's not there for you. Yeah, but you know what? Maybe I should be there for him like a few minutes after he comes home from work, and then maybe he'll be more. And the person will solve it on their own because you didn't judge. Because you didn't advise. You were just there. It's I'm giving you very good advice how to be empathetic. And therefore, if you want to learn to be like Hashem, you'll be like Hashem, and you want to be empathetic, you want to show the person, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Shechina did not have to leave into Galus. It could have stayed. It could have stayed. Instead, the Shekhinah was Goyal itself to feel Klal Yisrael's pain. So if you want to feel the next person's pain, you want to be empathetic, the key word is be there for them and be patient. Be patient. Go slow. Be ready to sit there for a while they themselves sort out what their issue is. Now, they say women are better at being empathetic than men. It's true. It's true. Naturally, women are better listeners. But it's still true also that sometimes we want to give advice. Sometimes if we have good advice, you know what we have to do? We have to ask permission. If we want to be empathetic, but we want to say something, ask permission. Say, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're really upset that this guy led you on and led you to believe you were going to get engaged, right? I'm thinking of something, and I would share it with you, but I only want to do it if you feel like now is a good time. You know, it's just an idea. But if now is not a good time, that's totally okay, because this is a very important moment. And, right? You ask permission. And maybe the person will say, no, I just want to stew in this a while. I want to sort it out in my mind. I just need you to be there for me. Okay. So, what I want to do now, just to finish up, is I want to give you 6 keys or tools how to become masters at empathy. Wouldn't that be great? Every person wants a friend who knows how to be empathetic, and every spouse wants a spouse who knows how to be empathetic. So let me give you the keys how to train yourself to become true Rachmanim b'nei Rachmanim. Okay? Number 1. Cultivate a curiosity when it comes to speaking to people who you don't know. A lot of times we're very comfortable in our circle. She's my friend, she's not my friend. I know him, I don't know him. They're totally not like me, right? Cultivate a curiosity when you have a new person, you're sitting on a bus, you're going somewhere, you're at a park. People are very complex. They're a puzzle. They're a whole novel unto themselves. And if you want to become empathetic, you have to learn to get into the next person's life. It takes practice. Right now, the people you know, you didn't have to practice. You know them because you've spent many years around them. Right? They're your friends. You've known them for a long time. But to get to know a new person is a chore. Oh no, right? Remember the new person coming to the class? Oh no, will they accept me? Will I accept them? Will they be normal? Will this be, right? It's like a big thing in your mind to overcome. But you're not going to learn empathy unless you practice getting to really be there and present for people, and people that you don't necessarily know. I'll tell you a quick little story. My brother, who passed away, during the 7 days of Shiva, a man comes into the Shiva and says, you know, I want to wish you, I want to be Menachem Olive for your brother. I said, how did you know Gavriel? He said, well, actually, I only met him for 5 minutes. I said, you met him for 5 minutes and you came to be Menachem Olive? He said, yeah, but those 5 minutes changed my life. I said, okay, what's the story? He said, well, I was on a bus. This was in Israel. I was on a bus. It was an Egged bus. And I'm sitting there minding my own business when this young guy comes onto the bus, sits down next to me, and he says, Shalom Aleichem. Like, wow, that's pretty friendly. And he begins to speak with me. And after a few minutes, he says, I have a question for you. What are you doing for the Jewish people? He said, excuse me? So Gabriel said, what are you doing? You're a good-looking fellow. You're articulate. You seem very smart. You're tall. You've got a presence. A guy like you could really have an effect on people. What are you doing for the Jewish people? And he said, I don't know what to tell you. And then Gabriel said, oh, it's my stop. I got to get off. Have a great day. And he leaves the bus. And the guy says, the rest of the day, the question was rattling around in my head. What are you doing for the Jewish people? So the next day, I signed up for a group called Arachim, which is sort of like gateways in Israel, teaches about Judaism. And today I'm one of the lecturers. I go around teaching for Arachim. Why? Because of a curious person who sits on the bus and shows interest. I grew up around a father, and I don't think my father ever watches these, but I look up to him very much. And he would invite guests, and the guests would sit right near him, and he would ask the guest about themselves. And he would get so deep into the guest's life. And I have to tell you, growing up, some of the guests were more boring than dry paint. You know, like, What is so interesting about doorknobs? He sells doorknobs. Wow. Okay, next. And my father said, great, let me ask you, what about these high-priced doorknobs? Is there like a mechanism? What if they get, how do you, and he says, do you find like new houses? Like, and he goes on and on, like, enough with the doorknobs. You know, and each person, each Shabbos, he would sit down with a person and he would just show this intense interest. And one of the things I looked up to my father about was the fact that he knew pretty much everything about everything. And then I realized why. Because he would sit and learn everything about everyone. So at that point, or at some point, not when I was young, at some point, I decided I have to practice this. So I travel a lot on a plane. So now when they put me next to someone, I take advantage. I'm sitting next to an older fellow. I'm speaking to him, what do you do? He says, I sell blankets, quilts. Great, I got a million questions about quilts. You do? Yeah. I wanted to know, is the down real? And what does it come from a duck? Does it come from a goose? And what does it mean, a 300 count thread and 400 is the Egyptian cotton better? And what's a good price for a down and how long it's supposed to last? And I was like, he was so excited to find this stranger interested in blankets. But I got to tell you, a little while later, I bought a blanket and I knew what I was doing. There's a little light going on in your head. It's an amazing thing. I sat next to a fellow just last week, and I sat next to two guys. Well, on the way there, I was going to Texas. So on the way there, I sat next to this cowboy-like guy whose job, he was in the U.S. Army before, and his job was to disassemble nuclear warheads. Heavy duty, right? On the way back, I'm sitting next to two guys. One guy works for a computer company, so I have my website, Shabbat.com. They sponsor this, somehow. And so I'm asking him about search engine optimization. And then the guy to my left, so he looked like a real rough fellow. He's like an overweight fellow. He's got tattoos everywhere. Like, I figured, oh, you know, this is some sort of a druggie. But, like, he made a comment to me, like after I'd finished speaking to the guy to my right, he made some sort of a comment to me. And the comment told me that he wanted a little bit of attention. So I began speaking to him. It turns out the guy's a major big shot. He arranges concerts for the top rock stars in the world. He is the concert manager. That's why he's all tattooed up. So forget, I had 1,000,001 questions to ask him. Very good. How do you do it? How do you have to cater to them? What happens if it doesn't sell out? He's like, wow, the guy is so interested. I'll even tell you, I do it for a different reason, but I'm like one of those weird people who I travel every week, usually by plane, and I ask for a middle seat. And the lady says, do you want a middle seat? I said, yeah. So the main reason I do is because I'm hoping to sit next to a Jewish person. And it almost always works. Right? It's twice the chance, right? But if it's not a Jew, then at least I have somebody interesting to talk with. I prefer the aisle, like, for convenience, but like to get the most out of it, give me a middle seat. Okay, so here we go. We're going to knock this out pretty quick because I got to get home. Here we go. Number one. Oh, so we did that. Number one, cultivated curiosity. Think about, so here's my challenge for you. Once a week, go over to somebody who is, you don't know, sort of a stranger, and find out about them. Don't grill them. Okay, anyone up for this? Go over to somebody you don't know, even if it's painful, even if you're a shy wallflower. Go over and get to know them. It'll teach you empathy. Okay, number two. Challenge your prejudices. And for those that you, I'm going to use a yeshivish parlance, those that you don't hold of, people you don't hold of. I don't hold of this group. This group, I'm not comfortable with. This group is a bunch of apikuristim. These are a bunch of... Challenge yourself to figure out what they're about. Where are they coming from? It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. There is a lot of sinas chinam going on. And there always has been. And do you know how I know? Because Mashiach would be here if there wouldn't be sinas chinam. So there are groups that we're not comfortable with. I want to tell you a story. There was a fellow by the name of Claiborne Ellis, not a Jewish fellow. And he grew up in like the real deep South. He grew up white. He was certainly against blacks, African Americans. And when he got older, he became he joined the KKK, Ku Klux Klan, just like his daddy did. And he eventually rose to the very top of the Ku Klux Klan. And he was they're called the Cyclops. He became a Cyclops in the Ku Klux Klan. And, you know, these guys, they hate Jews, they hate blacks. And then he got an assignment from the government. And the assignment was to join a black activist, who was a lady, to try to promote certain things within the school system. And this lady, he knew her, and he hated her, but he wanted to, you know, cater to the government, show he's a good citizen, he's an American. So, begrudgingly, he accepted, and he went about this project with this lady. And he spent over a week among these African Americans, and he got to know them, he got to know the children, he got to know the families, and at the very end, they had like a little banquet. And in front of everyone, he tore up his Ku Klux Klan card. Just tore it up. All it took was to see who they are and where they're coming from. To, as we say, humanize them. And if we could do that to anyone in this world, how much more so should we be willing to do that to other Yidden? So all the hatred that exists out there, well, they're YU, they're Chabad, they're Breslov, they're Satmar, they're Yeshivish, they're this, they're that, and I'm not them, to somehow figure out that them is really you. And there's no one here, literally no one, who can't find some common ground and learn empathy if you were to spend a little bit of time in their shoes. Growing up as a yeshiva bacher, I was a hothead. I'll be honest, I was a hothead. And there were many things that, you know, yeshiva bacher, we become a little militant, some of us. And I was a militant guy, you know, let's do it right. There's Emerson Shecker, I don't want to hear. And my wife says, in your old age, you've mellowed. I mellowed a lot. And I didn't mellow by accident. I mellowed on purpose. By trying to find out, I remember my brother offered me to go to Uman on Rosh Hashanah. To go to Uman. Now, I had my opinions about Breslov. I did. And I still do. Doesn't mean my opinions are radically changed. The beauty of empathy is you don't have to agree. You just have to see. You could disagree with somebody and still be empathetic with them. It's important to know this. Right? My derech is not their derech. But this year will be my 4th time going to Uman. And my davening is great there. It's amazing. It's amazing my wife lets me go. Right? But it was such a lesson. It was such a lesson for me. Here are people, you know, it's so easy to dismiss. Hey, you want to dismiss Satmar? Go around with the Satmar Bikkur Cholim. You want to dismiss Hasidim? Spend the Shabbos in New Square. You want to dismiss YU? Go to a NCSY event. NCSY is YU. It's OU. You want to dismiss? Don't dismiss. Put yourself in the other person's shoes, and you'll learn empathy. Okay. Number 3. So number 3 is somewhat similar. I call it try out another person's life, which means not a group, not a belief system, but just figure out. We're so quick to judge that we forget that the other person has baggage. You know, there was a mother she had the kids home, they had canceled school that day, so she tells her little Maishi, she says, Maishi, let's set the table for Shabbos. And Maishi was really getting out of hand as well. He was being very loud. So, you know, we'll keep Maishi busy. Now, little Elisheva who's 17 months old, is like tagging around. It's like getting in the way. She says, Maishi, let's go take out the tablecloth from the drawer. Go get it. And Maishi's like 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old. So Maishi goes into the other room to get the tablecloth. And a moment later, the mother hears screaming. She is screaming. And she comes and she sees there's little Elisheva, and she's got her fingers slammed in the drawer. And she sees that Maishi did it. Elisheva couldn't slam her own fingers in the drawer. Maishi did it. He's just standing there. She did it on purpose. And she's yelling and she's screaming. And the fact that he shows no remorse, he's not even sorry that he did it. She was boiling over. And then she stopped. She said, you know what? I need a little empathy for Maishi. He's going stir crazy. Maybe I've been a little bit short with him lately. Maybe I've been giving Elisheva a lot more attention, which I have. And maybe he did something wrong and he knows it, but it's his way. And she was very, after she yelled, he was like saying, go away, mommy, I don't want... And she was thinking, why are you saying go away? You're the one who did the wrong thing. I should be upset, or Elisheva should. You have no right to be upset. But he was coming from somewhere. Now, he has to learn, of course, that the way you solve your problem is not by slamming your sister's fingers in the drawer. But empathy would have allowed her to be a better mother. A lot of times, we see somebody coming around collecting tzedakah. Right away, want to judge them. Why don't you have a job? Well, is this what you're going to do? The same koyach that you use to go around collecting, use that koyach to get a job. Right? As if that's the easiest thing to do. As if, it's just so easy to find a job. Some people don't interview well. Some have tried. And some people, that's the only thing they're good at is collecting money. Some people are depressed. But we're so quick to judge them. Partly because we don't want to give them our money. So I'd rather judge them than give them our money. So try figuring out what it's like to be in the next person's shoes. There is a museum in Eretz Israel. It's a really, really good museum. It's called the Blind Museum. Ever been there? Ever been there? Great museum. You go there. The museum is in a building, and the whole building is so dark, it threw me totally off. I brought a group there, and it was so dark that I got nauseous. I can't describe it to you. I came in, and when you're so deprived, they seal off everything so there's no cracks of light. No matter how long you're there, your eyes cannot adjust. It's just blackness. And you're going through a building room after room. And it's supposed to teach you how to be it's supposed to teach you how blind people feel, how they have to go around life. So one room, you have to identify what's in the room, and you have to make your way around. In the last room, you actually have to go to a store and spend money. You have to figure out what money you're, right? In one room, they play music, and you learn how deep music is when you don't have eyes compromising, the senses. And then, spoiler alert, you could cover your ears. And then they tell you the secret at the end. Your tour guide is blind. Yeah, they don't tell you that in the beginning. You find that out at the end. Right? The tour guide is blind. So it's just an amazing experience. And they have a deaf museum as well there. It's not as effective, but I went with our group as well. They have these earmuffs that cover you over totally. You can't hear anything. And you have to function in the whole tour not being able to hear anything. It's like sort of, again, it throws you off. Okay, number 4. Listen hard and open up. Listen hard and open up simply means what we were saying before. Listening hard means I am not thinking what I'm going to tell you next. I'm not thinking about I have to get home and do homework. I'm not thinking about anything but you. I am being a very active listener. And not only that, but I'm going to be very honest with how I'm feeling about what you're saying. Which means that if I am opening my mouth, I will show you that I'm just as vulnerable as you are. So listen hard and open up. And remember, we said listening is following. We said listening is reflective listening, giving back, and simply showing the person that you are there for them. Number 5 involves inspiring a lot of people. Hopefully, some of you are being inspired to go home and practice your empathy chops. You'll become great listeners and great friends. You can inspire change in the world. I'll give you an example. And this is a tough example to say on record, but I'll say it anyways. You know, every community has its issues, and there were certain issues that dealt with children that for years were not spoken about, and a lot of grief and a lot of sadness has happened with those issues. And now, because there is a certain amount of empathy that people are feeling, these issues are slowly being brought to the forefront, and we're going to work on them. And throughout our history, there have been issues that really had to be spoken about, whether it was the Aguna issue, or the Shidduchim issue, or tuition issue, or Parnasa issue, or issues that involve abuse. And not just child abuse, but spousal abuse. The only way that we can motivate action in mass is through empathy. You know, China is in a lot of trouble these days because China, there's a little country called Tibet, and China believes that Tibet is part of China. And therefore, there's a war going on, and the war, you know, it's not an active war, but essentially the Dalai Lama is involved, and Dalai Lama wants Tibet to be its own country, so do Tibetans. But all of a sudden, China is on their heels. Because you know what the Tibetans, you know what they're doing now? Self-immolation. They are burning themselves. They are pouring gasoline on themselves, lighting themselves on fire. And to date, as of recently, 100 people did this. And there's nothing that brings forth the empathy of the world more than looking at someone and say, wow, this person had it so bad that they are willing to burn themselves in a horrific death rather than live under such conditions. And China doesn't know what to do with itself because they're very concerned, because they know. I mean, I don't want to give advice to the Palestinians, but if they want sympathy from the world, that's the way to go. They shouldn't be trying to attack us. Let them burn themselves up, because at least that sounds like a self-serving. I don't mean that, but that's how you get sympathy. You get sympathy by showing how difficult things are, to create a mass movement. So right now we have that ability to create a mass movement. So if you want to become more empathetic, think a little bit globally. Think of what issue hits home and join an organization that makes that issue your cause. Believe me, in college campuses around the country, they have their issues. Of course, it's like saving the whales or saving the trees, or like, oh, we need whales and trees. But, you know, let's start with home. Helping people, helping kids at risk, helping kids who need remedial help but the parents can't afford it and the schools don't offer it. Right? Be a big sister, right? You can create a movement. Okay, and now we have the very last one. The last one is be ambitious when it comes to empathy. And be ambitious means that we have a certain comfort zone. And our comfort zone is like, this is what I'm comfortable sharing. This is, you know, this is me, this is you. We need our boundaries. Do you ever go to a concert which was not very full, and there's a lot of empty seats, and someone sits right next to you, and you say, 1 second, buffer zone. We need that, right? We can have a buffer zone. There's me, and then there's a chair, and then there's you. Why do we want that buffer zone? We want it because we're not comfortable. We're not comfortable sharing the next person's life. It makes us squirm a little bit. So be a little bit bold in your attempts to be empathetic. Start with your family. Start with your sibling. Start with your best friend. I tell my Makarvim, when they go out onto a college campus, I said, don't make Hanukkah parties. You'll never get to know anyone. Instead, take people out to coffee and listen. Just take them out to coffee and listen for half an hour. Ask a few questions. Don't interrogate them, but listen. How many of us go to school with people, or go to college, or go to shiurim, and we know each other by smiles? Hello, how are you? You probably don't know my name, but maybe you do. Maybe you don't. But besides that, probably not too much. Right? To sit down with somebody and really, really feel what they're about. It takes effort. It takes time. So that is the lesson of Purim. Lesson of Purim is feel the next person's pain. Give the shalach manos, give the matanos la'avyonim. We all have masks. Take off your mask. Or put on the mask if you need to for a little bit. Right? Sometimes your curiosity or your openness will be a mask. It won't be that genuine because you're not comfortable. So put on a mask. Right? That's part of the lesson. You don't really see a person who they are. You see their mask. You have to peel it away so you know where they're from. Listen to every word they say. You notice that in the Megillah, if you miss even one word of the Megillah, it's the only thing. Even Kriyas HaTorah, that's not the halacha. But by Megillah, every single word you have to hear. Because when it comes to empathy, when it comes to understanding, you have to be there totally. You're hearing? Kol dichven yesev yechal. Right? Pesach is coming up. More empathy. Lachem oini. Empathy. Mara shemeru es chayeyim. Empathy. You see this trend? This is the Yiddishkeit. So my bracha to you is we should learn empathy, become empathetic masters, and this way we'll make the world a better place. Have a good night.